In this video, we are going to see how to factor quadratic trinomials in the form ax square positive bx positive c, where a is not equal to 1. That is, the quotient of x square is not 1. Okay, let's look at an example. Consider the quadratic trinomial 2x square positive 10x positive 12. Okay, so whenever I want to factor a quadratic trinomial which is in the form of ax square positive bx positive c, where a is not equal to 1. I mean, the coefficient of x square is not equal to 1. So first I have to look at whether there is any common divisor for all the three terms in the given quadratic trinomial. So clearly there is a greatest common divisor 2 for all the three terms, because 2, 10, 12. For these three numbers, the greatest common divisor is 2. So first I need to factor the greatest common divisor that we have for all the three terms. So we can factor 2 out. Okay, now to get the stuff inside the parentheses over here, I have to divide each term of the quadratic trinomial by the one I factored out. So that is 2. When I divide this 2x square by 2, I'll be getting just x square. And when I divide this 10x by 2, I'll be getting 5x. And when I divide this positive 12 by 2, I'm getting positive 6. Okay, now this is in the form of again ax square positive bx positive c, but here the coefficient of x square is just 1. Okay, if I try to factor a quadratic trinomial where the coefficient of x square is 1, I need to consider the constant term. So in this case, it's positive 6. Now, I have to get two factors for this positive 6 such that the product of the two factors is equal to positive 6. When I add the two factors, it must be equal to the coefficient of x, that is positive 5 in this case. I think positive 2, positive 3 will work. When I multiply positive 2 and positive 3, that is equal to positive 6. When I add them, when I add positive 2 and positive 3, they add up to positive 5, which is the coefficient of x. Okay, now what I need to do is, I have to split up the middle term positive 5x into two terms using the factors positive 2 and positive 3. Then I get positive 2x, positive 3x, positive 6. Okay, here when I combine these two terms, positive 2x, positive 3x, it must be equal to positive 5x. That's correct, because when we add positive 2x and positive 3x, it is equal to positive 5x. Okay, now consider the expression we have inside the parenthesis. So in this expression, we have to factor this expression by grouping. That is, we have to consider the first two terms as one group, the next two terms as another group. Okay, what is the greatest common divisor for the terms in the first group? That's x. So the greatest common divisor of x square and 2x is just x. So we can factor x out from the first two terms. So if I factor x out to get the stuff inside the parentheses, I have to divide this x square and 2x by the one I factor out, that is x. When I divide this x square by x, I just get x. When I divide this positive 2x by x, I'm getting positive 2. Okay, now I have to find the greatest common divisor for the terms in the second group, which contains 3x and positive 6. So the greatest common divisor for positive 3x and positive 6 is positive 3. So we can factor positive 3 out. Okay, to know the stuff inside the parentheses, I have to divide both positive 3x and positive 6 by this positive 3. When I divide this positive 3x by positive 3, I'm just getting x. When I divide this positive 6 by positive 3, I'm getting 2. Okay, now, so this is one term, this is another term. I have to find the greatest common divisor for these two terms. Clearly, it's x positive 2. Okay, now I can factor x positive 2 out from these two terms. If I factor x positive 2 out, to get the stuff inside the next parenthesis, I have to divide this term by the one I factored, which is x positive 2. So I'm going to divide x times x positive 2 by x positive 2. Then this one will cancel out. I just have x. Now I have to divide this positive 3 times x positive 2 by 1 by the one I factored, that is x positive 2. So this x positive will cancel out. I get positive 3. Okay, now I have factored the given quadratic trinomial 2x square positive 10x positive 12. So the factored expression is 2 times x positive 2 times x positive 3. Okay, let's look at another example. Here we have a quadratic trinomial. There is 2x square positive 9x positive 7, and the value of a is not equal to 1. So that is the coefficient of x square is not equal to 1. So let's check whether there is any common divisor for all the three terms in this quadratic trinomial. No, we don't have common divisor because here we have 2, 9, 7. There is no common divisor for 2, 9, and 7 other than 1. Okay, so in this case, what we need to do is, so we have to multiply the constant term positive 7 by the quotient of x square, that is 2. When I multiply this constant term positive 7 by the quotient of x square 2, I'm getting positive 14. Okay, now I have to get two factors for this positive 14 such that the product of the two factors is equal to positive 14 and the sum of the two factors equals to the middle term, I mean the quotient of x, that is positive 9 in this case. I think positive 2, positive 7 will work. When I multiply positive 2 and positive 7, that is equal to positive 14. When I add them, when I add positive 2 and positive 7, they add up to positive 9. Okay, now the next step, we have to split up the middle term 9x, positive 9x into two terms using the factors positive 2 and positive 7. Then I'll be getting positive 2x, positive 7x, positive 7. So please make sure combining these two terms must be equal to positive 9x. That's correct. When I combine positive 2x and positive 7x, that is equal to positive 9x. Okay, now I can factor this expression by grouping. That is, I can consider the first two terms as one group, the next two terms as another group. So what is the greatest common divisor for the terms in the first group? Clearly, it's 2x. So we can factor 2x out from the first group. If I factor 2x out, to get the stuff inside the parentheses, I have to divide the terms in the first group by the one I factored, that is 2x. When I divide this 2x squared by this 2x, I'm just getting x. When I divide this positive 2x by this 2x, I'm just getting positive 1. Okay, now let's move to the second group. Find the greatest common divisor for the terms in the second group. Positive 7x, positive 7. Clearly, it's positive 7. So we can factor positive 7 out. Okay, to get this stuff inside the parentheses, I have to divide the terms of the second group by the one I factored, that is positive 7. When I divide the first term, positive 7x by positive 7, I'm just getting positive 1x, that is x. When I divide this positive 7 by positive 7, I'm getting positive 1. Okay, now we have two terms. So now I have to find the greatest common divisor for these two terms. Clearly, it's x positive 1. So x positive 1 can be factored out. If I factor x positive 1 out, to get the stuff in the other parenthesis, I have to divide this term by the one I factored, that is x positive 1. When I divide this one by x positive 1, this is x positive 1, x positive 1 will cancel out. I'll have 2x. When I divide the second term by the one I factored, that is x positive 1, I'm getting positive 7. So the factored form of the given quadratic trinomial is x positive 1 times 2x positive 7. Okay, let's do one more example. Consider the quadratic trinomial we have on the board. So here it's negative 3x squared, positive 10x, negative 8. So in this quadratic trinomial also the quotient of x squared is not 1. That is a is not equal to 1. Okay, so we need to check whether there is any common divisor for all the three terms here in this quadratic trinomial. I don't think so because here we have 3, 10, 8. So there is no common divisor for these three numbers other than 1. Okay, so and also one more thing we have to notice, the leading term is having negative sign. So if I factor a quadratic trinomial, better I can avoid negative sign for the leading term because it will give us some trouble in factoring process. Okay, so to get rid of the negative sign, what we can do is we can factor the negative sign out from the given quadratic trinomial. Okay, so in any expression, if I factor negative sign out, I have to change the sign of each term in the expression. So already it's negative 3x squared. Since I factor negative sign out, this negative 3x squared will become positive 3x squared. This positive 10x will become negative 10x. This negative 8 will become positive 8. Okay, here inside the parentheses, so we have a quadratic trinomial that is it is in the form of ax square positive x positive c, where a is not equal to 1, and also the sign of the leading term is positive. Since there is no common divisor for the terms in the given quadratic trinomial, what we need to do is we have to multiply this constant term positive 8 by the quotient of x square 3. So positive 8 times 3 will be positive 24. Okay, now I have to get two factors for this positive 24 such that the product of the two factors is equal to positive 24 and the sum of the two factors is equal to the coefficient of x, which is negative 10. So I think negative 6 and negative 4 will work. Okay, so here I have to split up the middle term negative 10x into two terms using the factor negative 6 and negative 4. Then I'll be getting negative 6x, negative 4x, positive 8. Okay, when I combine negative 6 and negative 4x, that is equal to negative 10x. Always we have to check this so that we can confirm that we are going in the right way. Negative. Now, we have to factor this expression by grouping. So we can consider the first two terms as one group and the next two terms as another group. So now to factor, okay, now what I need to do is I have to get the greatest common divisor for the terms in the first group. So that is 3x. So I can factor 3x out from the first group. So if I factor 3x out, so to get the stuff inside the parenthesis over here, I need to divide 3x square and negative 6x by this 3x. So when I divide this 3x square by 3x, I'm just getting x. When I divide this negative 6x by this 3x, I'll be getting negative 2. Okay, now I have to get the greatest common divisor for the terms in the second group. So the terms of the second group are negative 4x and 8. So clearly, the greatest common divisor for the two terms in the second group is just 4. So because 4 is divisible by 4 and 8 is also divisible by 4. But one more thing we have to notice over here, we have a negative sign for the first term in the second group. So even though we get 4 as a common divisor, we have to factor negative 4 because here we have negative. So I am factoring negative 4 out from the terms of the second group. Okay, to get the stuff in this parenthesis, I have to divide this negative 4x by the one I factored, this negative 4. So this negative will cancel, 4 will cancel, I just get x. Okay, now I have to divide this positive 8 by this negative 4. So 4 goes into 4 one times, 4 goes into 8 twice. When I multiply this positive and negative, it will become negative. So when I divide this positive 8 by this negative 4, I am getting negative 2. Okay, now we can check if I distribute this negative 4 to this x and negative 2, I must be getting the stuff negative 4x, positive 8. So when I distribute this negative 4 to this x, it's negative 4x. When I distribute this negative 4 to negative 2, that's positive 8. So what we have done so far is correct. Okay, now I have to get the greatest common divisor for these two terms. Clearly, it's x negative 2. So I can factor x negative 2 from these two terms. So to get the stuff in the parentheses over here, what we need to do is we have to divide this term and this term by the one I factor, that is x negative 2. So when I divide this one by x negative 2, I'm just getting 3x. When I divide this negative 4 times x minus 2 by x minus 2, I'm just getting negative 4. Okay, so I factored the given quadratic trinomial, that is negative of x negative 2 times 3x negative 4.